Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jed. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, oh, how historical neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts, our studio right alongside the beautiful Fowl Meadow. We're so delighted and absolutely honored that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in that mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, GoodPod, Podcast Addict, wherever you find your favorite shows. We'll be introducing you to two amazing guests today. Madison Caputi is here to celebrate Tiki Tim, and Tess Grandison will be joining us from Australia to celebrate From City Life to Farm Tales, Pete the Peacock. This episode is brought to you by Daphne Draws Data. From the imaginative mind of best-selling author Cole Nussbaumer Knaflick and the vibrant illustrations of John Skewers comes a story that will captivate kids and grown-ups alike. Daphne is not your ordinary dragon. She doesn't breathe fire. She breathes life into numbers, turning them into pictures that solve mysteries, forge friendships, and save the day. Daphne's journey celebrates unique talents, the power of teamwork, and the beauty of seeing the world through a different lens. This dragon's tale is perfect for parents and educators to inspire the next generation of curious minds and innovative thinkers. Get your copy today. Daphne Draws Data. Join us right now from the sunny state of Florida. Our guest is here today to celebrate her debut picture book. It's called Tiki Tim. Please welcome to the show, Madison Caputi. Hey, Madison, how are you?
Aloha. I'm doing good. There's one to throw into your mix.
Yeah, oh, yes. We should add that to the opening of the show. I'm excited to have you on and talk about Tiki Tim. Tell us all about this book, please.
Yeah, Tiki Tim is near and dear to my heart. It's my debut picture book. At its core, it is a friendship picture book. So it is about this little boy, this little surfer boy named Kai, who is new to Adventure Bay. And Adventure Bay is this beautiful, really amazing place where people are happy on the beach. They're having adventures, just really soaking up everything that the bay has to offer. I'm greatly inspired by Hunama Bay in Hawaii. I did grow up in Hawaii. So that was a huge inspiration for the book. But when Kai finds himself the new kid in this amazing place, he's like, man, all of these kids around me are having so much fun and doing all these things, but I don't have anybody to do these things with. So he's kind of feeling lonely, and he finds solace sitting next to kind of the local tourist attraction. He is a tiki totem named Tiki Tim. That's what all the locals refer to him as. There's even a fun page of the locals taking selfies in front of him and stuff. I had a lot of fun with that. But he's just like, man, Tiki Tim, I just wish you were real. I wish that we could like adventure together. That would be amazing. And then this storm rolls through, and his wish actually comes true, and this huge lightning bolt strikes the tiki, and he kind of mysteriously comes to life. So we have a tiki that comes to life the next day. Kai and him are kind of reunited, and he realizes, oh my goodness, my wish actually came true. How did this happen? And he's forced to have, a decision. Do I seize the day and adventure with this tiki? Or I could, not, and I could be afraid. But he seizes the day. He takes on that moment, and him and Tiki Tim just really, they tackle all the cool things that you could do in a beach coastal environment. We're talking shaved ice. They love the pineapple flavor, beachside karaoke, a little bit Elvis, Blue Hawaii vibes going on, sandcastle building, shark tooth hunting, which is actually kind of a shout out to Venice, where I live. We're the shark tooth capital of the world. So that was kind of a fun little way to slide that in there. Parasailing, hiking, waterfall hiking, you name it. They have the coolest day. But at the end of the day, they realize that really just the best parts of life aren't about what we do and the adventures we have, but who we do them with. So that's Tiki Tim in a nutshell.
So cool. So cool. I love that you use the word adventure as a verb.
Yeah.
One of my favorite, YouTube bloggers, talks about adventurizing. And, I think, I like the idea that we're intentionally going on an adventure.
Yes. Yeah. And there should be some intentionality to adventuring, but also some spontaneity, right? We don't want to have everything perfectly planned.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, you mentioned that you grew up in Hawaii. I haven't had a chance to be in Hawaii, but I imagine it's a beautiful, beautiful place. I love being in the tropics in Central America and the Caribbean. And this is going to sound like a really weird question, but
fire it at me.
Last November, I spent the month of November performing all around the beautiful nation of El Salvador.
Oh,
and
cool.
On our last day there, before our last performance, we went to Playa Tamarindo.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this beautiful, it looks like someone came and took a bite out of the coast, because it's like a bay and they call it a gulf. And so you're on one side of the gulf and you look across and there's mountains and it's all green and it's just gorgeous, just gorgeous. Mm-hmm. And I had this really weird thought to be, how long would it take me to take this view for granted?
Oh man. Yeah.
And I'm wondering, were you able to continue to just be in awe of your surroundings when you lived in Hawaii, or was there a point where it just became, seen it before?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So yes and no. I think that Hawaii, I've also traveled like all over the world. I've been to the many Caribbean islands. I love Aruba, Puerto Rico, the Dominican, the Bahamas. We've seen a lot of really beautiful countries. But there's just nothing like Hawaii. Hawaii just has its own beauty. It is like second only to heaven, I believe. I believe that God created Hawaii as a way for us to just get a sampling of what it's going to be like. It's just gorgeous. And yes, living there, just doing day-to-day life, going to school. I spent a lot of formative years there. My family and I moved there literally at the start of the new millennium. It was the year 2000. We were there all the way until 2005 when we left, and I was entering high school. So I basically spent a lot of my growing up years on the island of Oahu. And man, I think that in a way, as a kid, there were definitely times where I was inside playing video games or just doing stupid things that kids do when I could have been outside more enjoying nature. But I do have so many amazing memories of just really, we would just drive the island. The island of Oahu, you can actually drive in a day. You can drive the entire perimeter of the island. And we did that often. We went all over the island. We were more up in the mountainous region in Mililani. So that's where I lived. And it was just gorgeous. And I will say that we might have taken for granted some of the things that you can do in Hawaii, but I remember always feeling awestruck by the beauty. Enough so that, years later, decades later, fast forward, it impacted me enough to really inspire me to want to make it kind of the thematic, plot point and a setting for my story. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. And so I'm looking forward to going back to Playa Tamarindo and just appreciating that view.
The local Hawaiians, people that are there their entire lives and their families and, their ancestors. I mean, I just can't even imagine. They literally are being brought up in paradise. And the local people of Hawaii are very, very proud to be Hawaiian. And that culture is just so special and so unique.
Then I'm adding to my bucket list. We have to get
You have to go and then let me know what you think.
Absolutely. So, did you always aspire to be a children's author, or was there something that said, now is the time?
That's also a really great question. This is literally, Jed, a childhood dream come true. I actually was, before we moved to Hawaii, when I was in elementary, I was creating little dummy picture books, and I would look at my parents and say, I'm either one day going to be a Walt Disney World animator or a children's book author and illustrator. I have always loved drawing. I have a real creative side of me, and I just feel like it's an inherent kind of like God-given gift that I've been given. And so I would see stories unfold in my head and try to, draw them out and write them out. This is something that I've wanted literally my entire life. But life happened. Years went by as I grew up. And I think that mentality of kind of the starving artist is something that a lot of creatives let kind of bring us down and make us feel like, hey, especially in high school, college, when you're trying to figure out what you're going to do with your life. I can remember thinking, this is what I want to do, but I don't know how to do something and make money at it. Like, am I going to be successful? Am I going to be able to feed my family? And admittedly, I let fear kind of drive me away from that. So years went by. I was in the real estate world for a long time, and I love design, interior design, real estate. It's also a big passion of mine, and I loved what I did. But when I became a mom, that's when just that spark of inspiration, just kind of being in the kid world again, reading those stories with my kids, I was like, man, I love this. And it reignited this passion. And I will tell you, Jed, I never would have dreamed that my first book would have been about a tiki of all things. I am not a tiki culture aficionado. That is not my scene. But, they say that you write what you know, and looking back and just kind of remembering some of those formative experiences in Hawaii, I mean, tikis are a huge part of the Polynesian culture. I mean, I saw them everywhere when we lived there. And now living here in Florida, just that coastal vibe, we see them all over the place, even here in my hometown. So I think that just my daughter, she kind of helped, revitalize that creative spark in me. And, I was laying in bed one night, literally, this is how Tiki Tim happened. And I was thinking, what am I going to get my dad for Father's Day? And my dad's name is Timothy. And he considers himself a little bit of like a Panama Jack. My mom, we jokingly say he's Panama Jack, she's Malibu Barbie. That's who they wish that they were. And I remember thinking I ought to get on Etsy and see if someone could make him a tiki, like a custom carved tiki. And it just hit me. It was one of those aha moments that you hear people talk about. And I was like, Tiki Tim, and the alliteration, just something about it just struck me. And I got out the notes on my phone, and I stayed up that entire night and initially wrote it in rhyming couplets. Just all of these rhymes about this tiki and this character and how he's larger than life and he loves to adventure. The adventure was always there from the beginning. I don't know why, but it just was. And the story kind of it started in 2022, and now we're seeing it come to fruition. So for me, this has been kind of a long time coming. It's been a passion project for sure. A lot of hard work's been put into Tiki Tim.
There's so much there that I think is important. You're right, about creatives, and whether it's music or books or art or, in my case, magic. Unless you grow up in that culture, the idea of like, well, yeah, I want to do that. I'm good at it, but how do I make money at it?
Yeah, exactly.
And I was very fortunate in that I had a mentor who was an amazing performer and certainly helped me become a better performer. But he sat me down and he said, what you want to do is you want to get into show business. And show business is two words, show and business. And if you notice, business is the much bigger of the words.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't take care of business, there ain't going to be no show.
Right.
I immediately went out and picked up a business book, and 35 years later, it's been a blessing. And that's the same kind of message that we share with the many authors and aspiring authors who listen to the show. It's so important to understand that when you're writing a book with the intention of getting it out into the world, you're starting a business.
Yeah, you are. You're starting a business, and you are the biggest proponent of your business. If you don't believe in yourself, who is? And one thing that my dad told me is some wisdom that he kind of passed down to me was find a way to do what you love and make money at it, and then you'll spend the rest of your life feeling that intrinsic reward of, I love this. I love what I'm doing. And so a lot of picture book authors in particular, it's kind of like a slow roll. I'm getting my feet wet and certainly not quitting the day job or anything to start. But you know what? I'm doing something that I love, and I hope and pray that years down the road, this is something that I see myself doing is my full-time career. I'm Madison, picture book author,
You guys didn't see it, but she just struck like a Wonder Woman pose. It was awesome. Madison, what kind of conversations? I want to get back to the business of books a little bit later on, but and Tiki Tim, love imagining what kind of conversations families can have when they're reading a book. And I'm thinking there's all sorts of great conversations families can have as they're reading this book together.
Yeah. So one thing that I'm really hoping happens with my young readers is that they're either going to identify with Kai as someone that's the new kid currently, or maybe they remember being the new kid, or maybe they know someone that's new in their school, or, school's getting ready to go back for the new semester. Maybe what's going to happen, and this is my hope, is they're going to look at that new kid in their class and say, in Tiki Tim, like Kai, being new didn't make him feel great. It's a very vulnerable thing. It's very lonely and hard. It's hard. So what can I do? How can I take the first step to make that easier on them? So essentially, I'm hoping that Tiki Tim, more than anything, creates empathy in this new generation. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. Such an important lesson to teach our kids. One of the messages that I delivered for 35 years during my educational magic show was just, if you see that kid who looks lonely, be a friend.
Be a friend. Yep. And it only takes one, especially when you're new. It just takes that one person to make you feel so much more comfortable. And when there's one, more will follow. I learned that myself.
Yeah. I've shared this. I grew up, in a neighborhood. There's so many people who nowadays they move around, and you obviously moved to Hawaii and whatnot. I kind of grew up in the same neighborhood, and I lived in the neighborhood I grew up in for first 20 years or so of my life. I didn't have to worry about making new friends because it seemed like everybody was my friend since before I could remember. And then I went to a different high school, and I remember traveling on public transportation over to the high school going, how do I make a friend? I don't know how to do. I've never had to do that.
I know. And I'll tell you what's funny is that this doesn't just affect kids. You go to school, you're kind of forced to be around other people. And then you go to college, you still have classmates, you're on, in these dorms, you're on campuses, you're surrounded by people. And then you become a young adult and you're in the working world and you're kind of faced with this other pivotal moment in your lifetime where you're like, how do I make friends? And you do have to be very intentional and vulnerable, bold. I actually, growing up, we didn't just live in Hawaii. I actually moved 10 times across 6 states by the time I graduated high school.
Wow.
So a lot of people are like, oh, were you a military brat? Well, no, but we moved like a military family. My dad was in retail, and the higher he climbed in the management chain of that retailer, the more we moved. And it was so amazing because I got to meet incredible people, experience, all different cultures and states and see amazing things. But it was hard. So Kai, in a way, and his experience is a little bit of a love letter to my younger self because I know what it's like to be the new kid. But I know that you don't have to stay in that place. Yes, it's hard, but you don't have to be a victim to it. And like I said, all it takes is just finding that one. Take the first step. If no one's taking the first step to welcome you and you're the new kid, then you need to take the first step and be brave. And that's another thing that I hope, that's a conversation that I hope is sparked among families when they read Tiki Tim.
I have a question, and this is something I've observed as I've been doing Reading with Your Kids since 2017 and 2,000 plus episodes. And very oftentimes when an author tells me, well, this book is, as you just said, is kind of like a message to myself when I was a kid. And so I see this character as part of me. Almost always when that happens, the author, and in your case, is a woman, and you're writing about a boy.
Yes.
And it happens vice versa. I'm wondering if any kind of thinking why that is?
I don't know. I don't know why Kai ended up being male. I don't know. But what's funny is, like I said, the idea first started with Tiki Tim. Then when I was going through the editing process, I worked with an incredible editor, Jennifer Reese, I believe is her name. I found her on Readsy, an amazing resource for all, wannabe authors out there and established authors. I loved it. We had a great experience working together. And she told me, she was like, I really feel like there needs to be something more. Tiki Tim is such a cool character. And this is something that hasn't really been done before. In my research, I think I'm the only second published book featuring a live Tiki character. So this is kind of a little bit of an uncharted territory. She was like, we need to go deeper. And so I just created Kai. Funny enough, after writing Tiki Tim, I did become pregnant with my now son. And Kai kind of in a weird way resembles my son. So Kai and my son have a lot of physical traits that ended up being very similar. I think that that's just funny. But I don't know. I think maybe deep down, I want people to understand that this is universal, whether you're a girl or a boy. It doesn't matter. Being new is hard in any situation, at any point in your life. Being a new person in a work environment is hard, This is something that's just a universal challenge that we as people have to face. So if we're teaching our young people, boys and girls alike, those skills on how do you handle it when you are new in a situation, that's just going to set them up for further success in adulthood.
Yeah, absolutely. We have talked a little bit about the business of books. You made a choice to publish Tiki Tim with a hybrid publisher.
I
Can
did.
you talk a little bit about what a hybrid publisher is and how it differs than a traditional publisher and how it's different than being a self-published independent author?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I had my finished manuscript, as all authors do, you kind of look at all your options. And in my research, self-publishing is where I was really leaning most of the time, simply because, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a creative person. I could see the pages. I could see the character. I could see it in my mind. And while I'm artistic, I am not a professional illustrator, and I wanted it to be done well. So having the ability to really work hands-on with that, illustrator was super, super important to me. But I've also mentioned I am a young mom. I've got 2 kids under the age of 4. When I signed the contract with Biblio Kid Publishing, my now publisher, my son was 3 months old. So I was in a season of life where not getting a lot of sleep, but I wanted to make this happen. I didn't want to wait. And I just had a moment where I thought, I had looked into Biblio Kid and other hybrid options, and I thought, what am I waiting for? Self-publishers are making an investment in their project, and I was like, I'm going to be making an investment anyway. If I went back to school and got my master's in creative writing, I would be making an investment, And so what I love about the hybrid path is that it's kind of marrying a lot of the things people appreciate about the traditional path along with the self-publishing path. And it's literally doing what the name suggests. It's marrying the two. So Biblio Kid has been amazing to work with. They have walked with me hand in hand along this entire journey, educating me, not just telling me. It's been a really, really educational journey. And that's kind of what I told myself, Madison, if you went back to school to study something, you'd be learning, you'd be investing in this. So, hybrid publishing, yes, it requires some investment on the author's side, but I was willing to do that because like I said, I want to invest in my dreams and pursuing the things that I feel like God has inherently blessed me with. I have these gifts, and it's my time to not just hold them to myself. I want to share it, and I want to make, the world a better place. That's such a big thing, but I want to impact people, and I want to impact the next generation. And man, I'll tell you, just even seeing my kids read this book will be next level for me. So hybrid publishing for me felt right. I didn't know what I was doing. I was willing to make some form of investment, and I wanted to be educated on what this looks like. So I do want to write further books. So now I have some skills and some knowledge that I didn't have before, and Biblio Kid has helped me tremendously. And I would love to work with them in the future, but who knows what the future holds, right? But now I know things that I didn't know before, and that's why I decided to go hybrid.
Well, you spelled it out so well, and learning is such a valuable tool. And just like we were talking about earlier, when you're making new friends, you have to be a little bit vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
When you decide to start your own little business, You have to be a little bit vulnerable, but if you can do it with some support, that can really help you go far and stay in when the going gets tough.
Yes, and they've been so good at that. They really do. My publisher has been amazing at making me feel confident, every step of the way, and validating decisions that we're making and saying, oh, I love that. Or, hey, Madison, maybe we should think about this. And I did get to have so much creative freedom working with my illustrator. It was so much fun. So, but it was the whole process of publishing, the design, the typography, the marketing. My goodness, marketing is a bear. And so they're actually giving me classes. Biblio Kid has kind of a secondary company associated with them called Journey to Kidlit. And that is strictly teaching people how to do this as a business. And so when you publish with Biblio Kid, you get access to those classes. So they essentially have educated me on how to not only write a book, but publish it. And so, like I said, you're either going to go to school to learn this kind of stuff, you're going to teach yourself and hope and pray you get it right, or you're going to have a mentor walking alongside you.
Yeah. We should tell everybody, speaking of marketing, we should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Tiki Tim and find out more about you.
Yeah, so I do have a website. It's booksbymadisoncaputi.com. Easy enough. My Instagram and Facebook handles are also at Books by Madison Caputi. And you can also find me on my publisher's website, bibliokidpublishing.com.
Awesome. And, you mentioned you've traveled all over the world. Are you going to take Tiki Tim on adventures to other places?
I love that you asked me that. Yes, I've had a lot of people ask me that, and I haven't written a second Tiki Tim manuscript yet. But I love the idea of making him and Kai travel together. So it's something I'm kind of toying around with, maybe even thinking about mythical creatures and things that could be in other countries, kind of part of their folklore and their culture that maybe they get to interact with. So we'll see. There's nothing in the works right now, but maybe in the future.
I can see it now. Tiki Tim, Kai, and the Loch Ness Monster.
Right?
or you say you love Puerto Rico, Tiki Tim, Kai, and the Chupacabra.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of different things that you could do for sure. But yeah, I would love to do a second Tiki Tim book, but we're taking it one step at a time.
Okay. Well, you have an open invitation to rejoin us to talk about your next book. Until then, we want to encourage everybody to check out Tiki Tim. It is the debut picture book from our guest, Madison Caputi. Madison, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Jed. Thank you so much.
Are you looking for a creative way to bond with your kids? Let me tell you all about Drawing with Your Kids, the ultimate destination for artistic adventures. Join us as we dive into the wonderful world of children's books with renowned illustrators guiding you step by step. From beloved characters to whimsical scenes, unleash your imagination and create cherished memories together. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just picking up a pencil, there's something for everyone at Drawing with Your Kids. Please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and click on the Drawing with Your Kids link at the top of the page and let the creativity flow. Drawing with Your Kids, where every stroke brings stories to life. Hey, my friends, we are going to take a trip to the land down under. Our guest is coming to us from Queensland in the wonderful nation of Australia. She is here to celebrate her wonderful children's book. It's called From City Life to Farm Tales, Inspiring Kids with Pete the Peacock. Please welcome to the show, Tess Granderson. Hey, Tess, how are you?
Hi, I'm well. Thank you very much for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here.
I'm delighted to have you. Those of you who are listening to the show, Pete the Peacock's beautiful plumage is right behind Tess. It just looks fantastic. Tell us all about Pete.
Pete is magic. He is wonderful. I came from city life, corporate world, and I fell in love with a beautiful farmer. So I ended up moving to farm life, which all of my friends were like, oh, I'd never do that. And we got on this beautiful property. It's got a big lake. We like to water ski. And it turns out there's a peacock on this property. He's wild, completely wild. And the people who owned the property before us, I think, were a little bit cruel to him. So it was very, very sad. And for about 6 months, he would actually hide in a great big shed that we had. It's a huge, huge shed. Well, you wouldn't even notice he was in there, and you'd make a noise or something, and then all of a sudden he'd get spooked and he'd run off, and it was really sad, but we coaxed him a little bit, and now he's one of the family. He's just such a beautiful, beautiful bird, and me being the city girl, not really knowing too much about them, and I'm not sure if your viewers know this either, but once a year, peacocks actually molt their feathers naturally. And they go quite bald and all little fluffy feathers everywhere. It's really quite funny. But as this was happening and we're getting all of these feathers all over the place, I thought, oh, he's been poisoned or something. There's something wrong with him. He's sick. How am I going to get him into the car? And I don't know if you've seen their feet, but on their legs, they've got quite a big spur. And I'm looking at him thinking, because he is a wild bird and I can actually hand feed him now, but that's as far as he'll come. You can't sort of touch him. And that's okay. He's got his personal space. But I'm thinking, the bird's sick. I've got to get him to the vet. How am I going to get him in this car? And how am I going to do it without getting, slashed and everything from his, and not upset him? And then I thought I better Google how to get him into a car or something. And I looked it all up. And then it turns out I learnt a lesson that, no, actually, they molt their feathers normally. This is a normal occurrence. And I thought, thank goodness I didn't take him off to the vet, because we live in a tiny, tiny town with one little vet. There's just a one street, so everybody knows everybody, and they would have thought, oh, the dumb blonde city girl, it's got this bloody, this peacock down, thinking that it's sick. So thankfully, the town didn't get to know that part. So shh, don't tell everybody.
Tell anybody at all. Your story reminds me of an old sitcom from I think the 70s. It was, or maybe 60s. It was called Green Acres.
Oh, I remember that show. That was marvelous.
Place to be.
It was marvelous. I don't think I'm quite as beautiful as Eva. What was her last name? She's a beautiful woman. May have been. She was beautiful. Anyway, I'm thrilled. But Pete is just magic, and I just adore him. And when I moved out here, because corporate life, I was in the financial world with stock markets and all that sort of thing, and very, very boring, I suppose. Kept me busy for a long time. But when I came out here, there's we were in a bit of COVID at the time, so a lot of remote working, so that's great. But the project that we were working on, and I had staff down in Melbourne and Sydney. That's why I said Melbourne's got beautiful people. They were my favourite staff in Melbourne. But the project actually wound up, and so I found myself out here in the country, totally different life, not bored, but, sort of thinking, what am I going to do with myself? And I was, 50 at the time. I'm 53 now. So it's sort of reinventing my world at this age, thinking, wow. And I thought, okay, I'll write a book. I know all this stuff about finance and what have you. And I started writing and I'm falling asleep. I'm thinking, this is so boring. People are not going to read this. And I thought, I need to jazz it up. So, I got onto YouTube and these beautiful, very artistic graphic designers. And I thought, I'll learn from them on how to put something jazzy in these boring books. And the best place to learn these things were the children's book illustrators on YouTube. So I got into a bit of that, and I actually fell in love with my creativity side, which I'd sort of buried for many, many years, being in the finance world, and actually didn't really realize I had it left anymore in me. And I started getting into this, and I'm looking out the window and I'm seeing Pete he's actually doing this whole fluttery thing with his feathers. And, it's wonderful, Jed, actually. He's actually just grown all of his feathers back. They've just come in recently, and he did his first big flutter 2 days ago. It was very exciting. We get very excited about Pete. And I'm thinking, wow, and I'm looking at him interacting with my little dog, which is Louie. And when Louie very first came out here and saw Pete, he chased him, and I was beside myself thinking, oh, this poor bird, we're trying to coax him down and make him realise that we're not, mean people. Anyway, now they're mates. I will walk down the back of the yard and Louie will follow me, and then Pete will follow me with his big feathers, and then we've got 3 cats as well, and all of them are in the stories. They're actually real, all of these animals. So we have 3 domestic cats, There is Monroe, who is a Russian blue, who is my partner's cat, and Josie and Eleanor, who's poor darling, she loves to eat, so she's a bit of a big putty cat, and as she walks, her little tummy sort of does this. So they've all got these amazing characteristics, and they will actually all follow me down the backyard. It's quite bizarre. So there'll be a peacock, a dog, three cats. And then if I go down to the lake, we've got the swans. So I called one Serena. She had 3 little cygnets. It's just magic here, seriously. And you look everywhere, there's so much inspiration. And I thought, bugger the finance stuff. This is so much more exciting. And I just it came out of me. It was just amazing. And then a girlfriend of mine has got little kids, and so I started reading it to them. And I went to school with law school with a lady who had a couple of little kids, and they moved down to Canberra. And she started reading the books to them. They were so excited. I sent them down feathers from Pete, molted feathers, obviously. We didn't pull them out of him. And they were so excited. And I've been up to the school here. It's a little tiny country school, and I've done some readings and things. And it's just, the kids love it. And the joy that I get from seeing their little faces light up, it's just magic, honestly. Who cares about the corporate world? This is great. It is the best thing in the world. And finally, at my age, in my 50s, I feel like I've finally become a real Australian and got to know the country life.
But, you know, what a great story. And I'm so happy for you, you know, experiencing this major life change and just falling in love with it. And that, so I'm very, very happy for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And the stories, I like to sort of incorporate values and things into them too, without, you know, shoving it down children's throats, I suppose. So I wanted to make sure, I just think it's so important for kids to value, you know, lessons of loyalty and honesty and being brave and having courage and building resilience, all these things that they have to, you know, get under their wing, I suppose, when we set them free. But if they can learn them with all these beautiful animals, and you can actually see these little values in the animals when they're interacting, which is kind of bizarre. I have this little cartoon thing that happens when I'm watching the animals, and a story will sort of evolve. But I think if we can encourage kids to learn these things with beautiful stories, and their parents or guardians are reading them to them, they're getting that bonding with them, they're getting good values instilled in them, and they're getting joy. And I also like to put some interactive stuff in there as well, so there'll be little colouring things for them and all that sort of jazz as well, so that they can really harness, I suppose, some learnings that is in a nice, light, fun way. So that's sort of the underlying tone of all my books.
Yeah. You know, you mentioned instilling values in your kids, and I think with all the, I don't know if you're experiencing this, but you know, there's this big cultural kind of divide here in the States and in other countries where, I'm on Team Purple and you're on Team Yellow, and we can't like each other, and I have to agree with everything the people on Team Purple believe in, and I can't agree with anything that you agree. And I've never, you know, I've worked with lots of groups of people in my life, and I've never agreed with everything, you know, that they say. I mean, my beautiful wife and I have been married for 34 years, and we love each other dearly, and we don't agree on lots of things, and it's okay.
That's right.
And I think it's important for us as parents to remember that, yes, it's important that we, it's here in the States, they're like, I got to save $1 million so the kids can go to college. And that's certainly important. And it's certainly important to put a nice roof over their head and, maybe a nice car, and, you have to get them the latest phone and whatnot. But what we really need to do is to help them grow and become strong, independent people. And the way to do that is through instilling values.
You are so right. It's interesting. My partner and I were actually having this conversation last night, and we've got 2 beautiful children who are growing up now, and one of them's had a grandchild for us. So we're now grandparents, which was actually one of the main reasons why I wrote my very first book on the Pete the Peacock series, which was a Christmas book, which I'm going to do a new addition to at the end of the year. But that was devoted to little Sadie, the granddaughter. But we were talking exactly about this. I think we've got into wrapping kids up in cotton wool, I think, a little bit too much today. And don't get me wrong, it's beautiful to be able to do that, but at what cost? There's a pro quo to all of this, whereby if we wrap them up and we give them everything and they're never going to be independent. They're never going to have their own be able to fend for themselves when we're not here, and we're not all going to be here forever, right? So yeah, as much as we love to help them, and we've done the same thing with our kids as well, but we're noticing certain things that we're thinking, wow, maybe we need to pull back a bit and let them stand on their own 2 feet, because they need those skills. They need to be able to do that for themselves. And you're absolutely right. And I think it's a good thing that we don't all believe in the same thing, and, not to the point where we're all, wanting to go at each other. Where I think you've got to have a lot of, everybody's different, and respect that, but they need to respect that you've got your own opinions and things as well. And I think if we can put those sort of messages in books for children as well, so there's acceptance, respect, but there's also that individuality that is so important to harness. If they've got a longing for a certain, thing that they want to do, or I'm probably not sort of explaining that very well, but I think individuality is very important, and that brings out creativity and all those sorts of things, and let them thrive with that. But yes, I think handing them everything on a platter is setting them up for perhaps destruction.
It's interesting. I have an incredibly talented intern working with me for the summer semester here from Emerson College, Devon, and she's really interested in the fact that there are so many books that feature animal characters, and she is the project she's working on is kind of asking that question: why are kids so attracted to animal characters in books? And since you're writing a series with all these wonderful animal characters, I guess I should ask you, what do you think? What is the magic behind having animal characters in kids' books?
I think animals give so much joy to people from a completely unconditional love point of view, and it's so simple. You feed an animal, it comes to you, but it's all there, and I think if we can harness that, and you watch their interactions with the other animals and things, as I was sort of mentioning before, you can see these interactions. There's 3 magpies, actually. I haven't got them in my books yet, but I think they will come. And they're here out the back quite often. They get on this pole. Every day we go and have a cup of coffee at 10 o'clock in the morning. And these 3 will be, they must be, siblings or something. And they will, whistle their little songs, and they sound beautiful. And this little peewee, I don't know if you guys have got those over there, but they were a black and white bird as well. They're probably, I don't know, a little bit less than half the size of a magpie. And they can't sing for, the life of them. And they've got this little, and the others have got this beautiful song going on. And this little peewee goes up in between these 3. We're watching this. It's quite bizarre. And you've got these beautiful songs going, and they look down at the peewee, and the peewee goes, "Eek!" And and the rest of them are looking down at the the peewee going, "Is that all you got?" And then and then the peewee, but it was almost like you're watching them, and they were almost encouraging the peewee to, practice and get better. And maybe this is all in my own head, but I think children see this in animals, right? And it's this encouragement, or it'll be, they'll be chasing each other, and kids chase each other in the playground. There's a lot of similarities, and I think when they play, they learn. One might get hurt, and you'll see an animal go up to an animal and lick it, and so it's actually taking care of that animal. And kids are like little sponges and they take all this in. And I think that is the attraction. They can relate to it. Mm-hmm. Kids are smaller too. Animals are smaller. I might be making all this up, Jed, but this is just what I'm seeing. And I think a lot of that is the attraction. And let's face it, they're cute, right? They're cute. Even little piggies are cute. My partner won't say that. He's not a big fan of the piggies, but we get wild pigs on the property and they can cause a bit of havoc, you see. But, we've got kangaroos here and you see them bouncing along and you'll see a little Joey in their tummy. Like, it's just magic. I think there's something with animals, nature, and all those interactions, and they definitely have the same, I think, values that I'm sort of trying to put in these books and what have you. And it's joyful. It's really lovely. Don't get me wrong. You'll get a rogue dog that'll go through the property too and try and attack a sheep or something. I mean, there's all of that. So I guess the human interactions that we experience, animal world has that as well. And it can be vicious or it can be beautiful. But I think shining a light on the beauty is magic.
So it's obvious that this midlife change of careers for you is a happy one. What advice would you have for somebody that's, in that age range and they've had a successful career, but it just isn't doing it for them anymore, and they're longing, but it's like, I can't walk away from it. There's so much success and I don't want to have to start over again. And what if I fail? What advice would you have for that person?
All of that was exactly me, Jed, for most of my life. I was in the financial career for 30, 35 years. I'm getting up there. But and you become very good at what you do and they pay you a lot of money and you thrive on it. Everything that you put, master's degrees and everything, your education, everything, and you love your staff or what have you, but it's super stressful. And you know that that's not really where you want to be, but you get on this treadmill of, well, I couldn't possibly leave it. This is all and it was probably the best thing for me. My last 5.5 years, I was employed by Westpac, which is one of our big four banks, by the office of the CEO. We had a big, and I think a lot of places around the world went through this, after, the GFC and all those sorts of things. There were a lot of, sadly, rogue planners and all those sorts of things where, and I'm in financial markets. We're about helping people grow their wealth. Well, this will throw a spanner in the works out there. I don't think, this is the world according to Tess, I don't think that banks should ever be allowed to have wealth management or financial planning in their foray for their clients, because it's a real conflict of interest, right? Banks are all about getting people into debt, not actually helping them build wealth. And I think that's what we saw here in Australia, and a lot of it, the things that we saw, so just dreadful. So I went on the side of, I wanted to help the industry. So that last 5.5 years, I went to work. We had a big royal commission into the dodgy financial planning advice that banks were giving. And I was employed by Westpac because of the royal commission. So we had to have an unbiased, it sounds ridiculous, but we was, Chinese walls, all that sort of jazz. And we forensically investigated the work that was done by these terrible planners within the banking institution and remediated that work. And it was grueling. It was the hardest part of my career I'd ever done, the most rewarding to fix things as much as we could. And when you have terrible financial matters that go awry, people's lives are destroyed. We can't fix that. And it's absolutely horrific. And my whole career was built on helping people, not destroying people. And it broke my heart. It was just devastating. And I had an amazing team across 3 states in Australia. biggest team was in Melbourne. Beautiful, beautiful people. And we really worked hard. And then finally, we remediated all of these people and got to the end of the project, and that was it. And for probably the last 18 months, I was telling my staff, and we'd all meet up, we'd have interstate meetings, and I'd say, you know, and they were like me, you know, this is what they'd done all their life. What are we going to do? And we're all sort of older, and one lady was in her 60s, and, you know, brilliant minds, great people. But, you know, they'd all been turned off the industry because of all this stuff that's happened, and now we've sort of cleaned it up, and nobody wanted to be in it anymore because it was just not for them. And I felt the same, but what do we do? You know, we really felt, oh, we can't do anything. But you've got all these skill sets, and it's a mind shift that you've got to be open for, but you can do it. I'm proof. So dig deep into, and this is what I did, dig deep into what it was that you used to love doing. And I had completely forgotten, and my partner said, well, you know, how did you come up with the story stuff? I'm like, I don't know, you know, I'm just watching these animals. And then I really thought about it, and I forgot that when I was 8 years old, I actually wrote a story in the newspaper had this little contest. And if you wrote a little story, you could win all these fabulous things. And so I wrote the story. I can't even remember what it was about now, but I remember winning. And I got all these amazing things. But the best part of it, forget about the toys and the stuff that came, it was this certificate that said I won. And I'd actually forgotten about that and my artistic ability, because I've got, you know, I completely forgot about that. So, you know, now I'm illustrating and, you know, taking hold of bits of AI and adapting it, and go with technology, people. I know that the whole AI thing is you know, people love it, hate it, or what have you, but it's here. It's like the internet, right? Mm-hmm. And here I am, living proof. I'm 53 years old. I have reinvented an entirely different career. It can be done. And I didn't think it could be done, you know, but I think it takes, and what we pop in these books, courage, bravery, and just take the step. And I'm very, very lucky. I have a beautiful, beautiful partner in my corner. You know, if you can wrestle around you family and friends that will support you and love you through these things, you got this. You can do this. Yeah. Living proof.
Great, great advice. We should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about you, find out more about and all adventures.
Thank you. Well, Louie and the Orphan Peacock is the prequel to the whole series, and it is available on Amazon or on my website, which is www.cleverquillpublishing.com. And I have also just released Pete's Outback Olympics, which is all about the Olympics and the Olympic spirit, which is amazing. And it's about loyalty as well. So there's some really beautiful things there. Louie and the Orphan Peacock, the ebook is a free version. So if they go through my website, they'll get access to that. And in the back of every single book, all of the illustrations I've made into a downloadable colouring in book, so they've got that interactivity. But I'm also about to launch the paperback and hardback copies of both books on the 14th of August. So people who buy the paperback or hardback copy of Louie and the Orphan Peacock, there's actually a special colouring in page on there with a big contest, and they can win $100 US Amazon gift card, 5 beautiful paper books, paperback books that are by various different artists. And I'm not sure if I can share the screen, but I can show you a picture of what it's all about. But for your viewers, if they wish, and I haven't set up the QR code for it yet, but if they would like to email me personally at Tess, Tess, at cleverquillpublishing.com. I hope my accent's not weird. And if they put in their Jed's podcast listener, I will give them free access. They don't have to buy the book. I will give them free access to the colouring contest. And that runs through to the 20th of December. So they need to be as creative as possible. And I don't know, Jed, but if you're willing to have me back, I might get you to draw it and we can draw the lucky winner, only if you're up for it. Sorry, I sprung that on you, Jed.
Certainly be up for it. I think that would be a lot of fun. The only question I have is the winner going to get a certificate?
Yes, absolutely. That's the best part, right? And they get a T-shirt with Pete the Peacock and Louis, and they get the 5 beautiful books from various artists, not just myself, but other authors as well. And they get the $100 Amazon gift voucher. So, and they can use that in any country. So if they let me know where they're from, I'll make sure it's from the relevant place. I'll just share, if I may, a photo, and they might be able to see what we're talking about here. Here we go. Let's see if we can do this. Only host can share in this meeting. Oh, sorry, Jed. You're the man with the power.
Well, but this is a audio podcast only.
It is too. I'm so sorry. My goodness. Me with technology, I'm not all that fabulous. Shh, don't tell everybody. But if they want to send out that email, if they want to email me, I will give them a free access to enter that competition. It's a beautiful thing. And not only that, but they can share all their beautiful artwork online. And be creative, kids. Be creative. It's marvelous.
That's fantastic. We've had a great time learning all about Pete the Peacock from our guest, Tess Grandison. Tess, thank you so very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. It was really wonderful.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids, and we hope it inspired you to join us for the next exciting episode of the show, and maybe even leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcasting app that you're listening to the show from. We really need some reviews over at Spotify. That could really help a whole lot. We'd love for you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, at Jedley Magic on Twitter. And of course, we'd love for you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. I want to start by thanking our guests, Madison Caputi, Tess Grandison. I want to thank my amazing team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady, Judy Hu, Stella Cheray, Hannah Bosange, Alyssa Montiero, Devin Hill, Riley Oluwu. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. You are amazing. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.